Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, is a prime example of the power of self-education. Born into a poor farming family, he never attended formal school, nor received any diploma. However, this didn't stop his thirst for knowledge. To find books to read, Lincoln often had to row a boat for nearly 10 kilometers just to borrow them. Remarkably, he didn't limit himself to textbooks. He borrowed all kinds of books. Anything worth reading was eagerly brought home and read, cover to cover. There's an unforgettable story about how Lincoln first began borrowing books. One day, as he traveled by boat to the county seat, young Lincoln sat next to a tall, handsome young man who was old enough to be his uncle. Seeing the man reading, Lincoln curiously peered over his shoulder to catch a glimpse of the pages. Noticing the boy's eagerness, the young man asked, "Do you like to read? Here, I'll lend it to you." This was the very first time Lincoln had borrowed a book from a stranger. This story clearly illustrates the essence of a good deed, of virtuous action. When an adult notices a child's curiosity and eagerness to learn and lends them a book, that's precisely how you plant the seeds of virtue. Similarly, you can create virtue by sharing your knowledge. Instead of just reading alone, enjoying your ice cream in isolation, take notice of the curious children around you. When you see them coming closer, instead of simply giving them ice cream, give them an opportunity to read. You might encourage them by saying, "Finish reading these 2 pages, and I'll give you an ice cream." That's how you foster virtue, by encouraging the habit of reading. Encouraging children to read isn't as difficult as we often imagine. This is a form of sharing wisdom, and indeed, sharing wisdom is one of the greatest virtues you can practice. Abraham Lincoln tirelessly educated himself for over a decade, often walking as far as 10 kilometers to borrow books. Through persistent self-learning, he became a lawyer despite the fact that, at the time, the United States did not yet have a formal qualification system for lawyers. Back then, the system simply granted licenses to those who argued well, no schooling or formal exams required. Lincoln was renowned for his integrity as a lawyer. He never told lies and frequently defended those wrongfully accused without charging any fees. He particularly stood up for farmers who often faced mistreatment during the era of slavery. At that time, wealthy landowners and capitalists owned many slaves, often treating them with cruelty, even beating them to death. Lincoln recognized a significant contradiction between the U.S. Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. While the Constitution allowed slavery, the Declaration stated that all men are created equal, endowed with equal rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It was this contradiction that inspired Lincoln's perseverance to change the Constitution, motivating him to pursue a career in law. As a lawyer, Lincoln often represented poor farmers in difficult cases. He took on challenging lawsuits without hesitation, providing legal support for those who were oppressed. Such actions placed him against powerful interests and exposed him to threats, including threats against his life. Yet, Lincoln remained steadfast, successfully advocating justice for the vulnerable. After some time practicing law, Abraham Lincoln became highly respected. Interestingly, one day at the peak of his fame, he caught the eye of a young woman who was then dating a sitting senator. She was so captivated by the renowned lawyer that she decided to leave the senator to pursue Lincoln. Remarkably, 15 years later, when Lincoln became president, that very senator became his vice president. However, serving as president was not an easy path. Lincoln soon realized that being president meant a constant 24-hour responsibility. There was no concept of an 8-hour workday. Instead, the president had to remain ready around the clock. A president must always be prepared to handle any situation at any time of day or night. The Earth has 24 time zones. When it's nighttime in the United States, it's daytime elsewhere. Consequently, a U.S. president must always be ready to deal with crises, anywhere, anytime. Through Lincoln's experience, it's clear there's no real balance between personal life and work when one becomes president. Anyone who chooses this path must accept that the presidency consumes their entire life, leaving little room for anything else. Only by fully dedicating themselves can they truly be worthy of this position of immense power. Once you've committed yourself to a particular path, you must fully embrace it. There's no room for half measures or a fragmented approach, reading a little, eating ice cream a little, going drinking a little, playing billiards a little, or partying a little. Such an idea of balance simply doesn't exist. Over a decade ago, while studying psychology, I was misled by teachers who advocated the idea of leaving your slippers at the door. That meant leaving your work outside when you came home. However, I've realized this concept is an illusion. When you truly care about something, it's impossible to just switch it off at the door. It stays with you, lingering in your mind long after you've stopped actively thinking about it. While studying the lives of great scientists, I've realized that none of them ever separated their work from their personal lives. For instance, great minds like Einstein, Newton, or Darwin were completely immersed in their work, so much so that it permeated their subconscious. They didn't just bring their work home, it invaded their thoughts, even their dreams. They might forget their family, their wives and children, but their formulas, theories, and ideas remained crystal clear. This level of devotion and obsession is precisely what enabled them to change the world. When Dmitri Mendeleev formulated the periodic table, it emerged directly from his subconscious during sleep. Similarly, many renowned scientists didn't just carry their work home, they carried it deep into their subconscious minds. This shows how genuine passion is inseparable from one's very existence. Even the Buddha himself demonstrated such unwavering dedication. Once he chose his spiritual path, he fully committed to it, completely distancing himself from personal attachments. Born a prince, he refused to even meet messengers from his family after embarking on his spiritual journey. Among the 5 ascetics who followed him initially, 4 were actually assigned to protect him, rather than sincerely pursuing enlightenment themselves. Besides teaching himself to become a lawyer and defending innocent people without charge, Abraham Lincoln's life was filled with hardships, particularly after he became President of the United States. When the Lincoln family moved into the White House, his presidential duties had no fixed schedule. Meetings could extend indefinitely. There was no concept of setting a timer for half an hour and abruptly ending. This situation deeply frustrated Lincoln's wife, Mary Todd Lincoln. She often expressed her irritation openly, flipping over dining tables and sending generals home abruptly. In fact, Mrs. Lincoln, alongside the philosopher Socrates' wife, has gone down in history as one of the 2 most infamous spouses, known for their notoriously difficult personalities. Speaking of Socrates' wife, there's a famous story about her temper. One day, while Socrates was hosting visitors downstairs, prestigious individuals seeking philosophical advice, his wife, who was washing clothes upstairs, poured an entire bucket of water down upon the visitors' heads, greatly offending these respected guests. It's noteworthy that philosophers like Socrates never accepted payment for their advice. Unlike modern psychologists or NLP experts, once you achieve the level of a true philosopher, your wisdom is beyond monetary valuation. This was also true of the Buddha and Jesus. The wisdom cannot be priced or measured in money. Because Socrates refused compensation for his counsel, his family lived in constant poverty, making his wife increasingly resentful. She wished his efforts could be quantified into money, which fueled her frequent outbursts against his distinguished guests. Once, after being drenched with a bucket of dirty rice water poured down by Socrates' wife, a guest asked Socrates how he could tolerate such a difficult spouse. Socrates calmly replied that it was precisely thanks to her that he became a philosopher. By constantly reflecting upon her character and trying to understand why she behaved the way she did, he gradually delved deeper into philosophical contemplation and ultimately emerged as one of history's greatest philosophers. Besides facing numerous challenges as president, Abraham Lincoln also encountered significant trials within his family life. His wife, known for her volatile temperament, often overturned dinner tables and chased away the generals dining with Lincoln, She was notoriously difficult to please. When Lincoln became president, tensions rose dramatically, ultimately triggering the American Civil War. After he made clear his intentions to abolish slavery, Southern states wealthier and heavily reliant on slave labor seceded, initiating a brutal civil war lasting 4 long years, coinciding precisely with one presidential term. During the first year of the Civil War, the Northern forces under Lincoln suffered repeated defeats. The South not only had superior resources but also more capable military leaders initially. Lincoln's army seemed constantly overwhelmed. Recognizing the extreme situation, Lincoln made a crucial decision. He replaced ineffective generals and promoted a previously unknown captain to the rank of Major General. This new general brought consecutive victories to the Northern Army, eventually earning further promotion to General-in-Chief. After Lincoln's assassination, that same general continued to lead and later rose to the highest military rank, becoming General-in-Chief. Lincoln's greatest achievement was undoubtedly the abolition of slavery, a measure officially adopted throughout the entire United States. From there, the abolitionist movement gradually spread around the globe, influencing country after country. Notably, it wasn't until 1994 that slavery was formally abolished in every nation worldwide. This fact serves as a powerful reminder of how recently humanity finally moved away from this dark chapter in our history. Just a few decades ago, humans still treated each other as slaves. Even today, in remote areas beyond the reach of government or justice, slavery-like practices persist in various forms. Abraham Lincoln, after issuing the Emancipation Proclamation and successfully leading the nation through a brutal civil war toward reunification, never had the chance to fully enjoy the fruits of his labor. Shortly after unifying the country and beginning his second presidential term, won by an overwhelming majority, losing only by a few percent, Lincoln met a tragic end. One evening, at the request of his wife, who had long wished to attend a play, Lincoln agreed to take his family to the theater. It was in that dimly lit theater, despite the presence of bodyguards, that Lincoln was assassinated. Following his death, the general he had previously promoted succeeded him as president. This story imparts a crucial lesson. When undertaking important responsibilities, even seemingly minor decisions, including requests from close family members, must be considered with great caution. Lincoln's decision to honor his wife's wish to watch a play ultimately cost him his life. Let's take a moment to compare the faces of Abraham Lincoln and George Washington, who appears kinder and more approachable. Washington had a very prominent nose. Indeed, both men had strikingly high noses, with pronounced nasal bridges. But Lincoln's face was more rugged, and even his fists appeared rougher. When Lincoln decided to abolish slavery, he knew the decision might cost him his life. Lincoln understood clearly the dangers involved, yet upon becoming president, he immediately signed the Emancipation Proclamation, despite knowing the risks. Due to the nation's turmoil, this decision couldn't be fully enforced immediately, and soon afterward, Lincoln was indeed assassinated. We must ask ourselves, what motivated Lincoln's courageous decision? Was it for the people, for equality, or was it due to fear? Clearly, it was his commitment to equality and justice. Even though he knew he might die, he never wavered. Throughout history, people around the world consistently rank Lincoln and Washington among America's greatest presidents. While many other presidents are barely remembered, these two leaders continually receive recognition. Their images grace American currency, reflecting their lasting legacy. When Abraham Lincoln made the courageous decision to abolish slavery, he clearly understood that this choice could cost him his life. Yet he proceeded without hesitation. He embraced the danger knowingly, signing the Emancipation Proclamation right after taking office. This fearless act demonstrates extraordinary bravery, genuine courage, and unwavering perseverance. Great political leaders who become legendary figures all possess remarkable qualities like this. America has had over 40 presidents, yet when ranked worldwide, only Washington and Lincoln consistently emerge at the top. Many other presidents have faded from memory, but these two remain widely celebrated. Their images appear prominently on American currency, a clear testament to their lasting global fame. There's a famous letter written by Lincoln to his son's headmaster in which he earnestly asked the teacher to teach his son a critical lesson, that he may sell his muscle and intellect to the highest bidder, but never, under any circumstances, allow anyone to buy his integrity. Lincoln started as a self-taught child. Do you think this helped him become exceptionally strong? Indeed it did. A self-taught individual often develops greater strength than one who has been taught or forced to learn. Both wisdom and perseverance are vividly apparent from childhood. As a young man, Lincoln practiced law with absolute honesty as his guiding principle. He even represented wrongly accused individuals without charging any fees. Wasn't his refusal to lie a reflection of exceptional integrity? Wasn't his willingness to defend the innocent for free evidence of remarkable moral strength? His courage in confronting powerful adversaries despite facing severe threats further demonstrated extraordinary resilience. Later in midlife, when he became president, Lincoln abolished slavery. He knew this decision might cost him his life, yet he remained steadfast and signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Isn't this act a powerful testament to his exceptional courage? Lincoln exemplifies a remarkable convergence of integrity, intellect, and perseverance. Wherever these qualities gather, extraordinary individuals will arise. Thus, if you encourage your children to cultivate even a fraction of these virtues, they will undoubtedly grow into remarkable people. There was once a student who asked me, "Why do you always use examples of great people instead of ordinary ones?" I replied, "You should learn from great people, not ordinary ones. Because if you can become even 1% as good as a great person, that's already remarkable." For instance, if you want to be inventive, learn from Edison. He had 2,000 inventions. If you achieve just 1% of what he did, you'd have 20 inventions, enough to become one of the most inventive people in Vietnam. Then what do you have to worry about? That's why you should set great people as your role models, not ordinary people. When you set your sights on ordinary individuals, you may easily fall into the trap of excessive pride, or what we call ego. Imagine this. You set your goal to surpass your friend. One day that friend encounters failure and their career declines, while you succeed and rise higher. At that moment, wouldn't your ego easily flare up? "I've outdone you." That's exactly how ego manifests itself. Conversely, if your standard is a truly great person, you'll always remain humble. But when you surpass a certain milestone relative to ordinary people, your ego immediately awakens. You start thinking you're brilliant, becoming arrogant and self-important. Speaking of physiognomy, later on, if you get married and find your husband has rough knuckles, rugged facial features, a prominent nose, and strong reasoning skills, rest assured that he is very intelligent, although possibly a bit stubborn. Intelligent people often seem stubborn, but it's not stubbornness in a negative sense. They're considered stubborn because they perceive issues we cannot yet see. When presented with better, more persuasive reasoning, they'll immediately change their viewpoint and cease being stubborn. Thus, they aren't truly stubborn, they're steadfast. Because they've understood the matter clearly, they firmly maintain their position. Consider Abraham Lincoln's decisions. Were his choices during that era considered stubborn? When he signed the order to abolish slavery, knowing very well that he might face assassination, do you think his family might have tried to dissuade him? When signing, fully aware that the North and South would split and civil war would follow, surely his generals opposed him, probably urging, "Don't sign. If you sign this, war is inevitable. Let slavery continue." But Lincoln firmly said no, and decisively signed the order anyway. That wasn't stubbornness, it was unwavering commitment to moral principles and faith in what is right.